On November 18, 1978, in a remote jungle settlement in Guyana, over 900 people lost their lives in a single day. Men, women, and children willingly consumed cyanide-laced drinks, leading to one of the deadliest cult massacres in history. This wasn't the act of a brutal dictator forcing his victims to comply. It was something far more chilling. A man named Jim Jones, using only words, convinced over 900 intelligent and capable people to take their own lives. How does this happen? How do seemingly rational people become so blind, so obedient, that they willingly walk toward their own destruction? We like to believe that intelligence protects us from foolishness, that an educated and rational mind cannot fall into such traps. But history proves otherwise. Intelligence does not always protect us from stupidity. Stupidity versus evil. Most people assume that the greatest threat to society comes from evil individuals, those who deliberately choose to harm others. We fear criminals, dictators, and those who act with malice. But Dietrich Bonhoeffer, a German theologian and resistance fighter during World War II, made a disturbing observation: stupidity is far more dangerous than evil. Evil can be confronted, debated, and resisted. It has intent, a motive, and a strategy. Even the most malicious individuals often understand the consequences of their actions. This means that in theory, evil can be stopped. Stupidity, however, is an entirely different force. It is immune to reason. It does not think, it does not question, and it does not recognize its own existence. A person acting out of stupidity is far more dangerous than a person acting out of malice, because unlike evil, stupidity has no limits. It is self-sustaining, spreading through society without resistance. And that is what makes it the greatest enemy of all. The mechanism of stupidity. Many people confuse ignorance with stupidity, but there is a crucial difference. Ignorance is simply a lack of knowledge. It can be fixed with education, exposure, and open-mindedness. A person who is ignorant can learn when given access to new information. Stupidity, however, is much more dangerous. It is not just the absence of knowledge, but a deliberate rejection of it. A stupid person refuses to accept facts, even when presented with undeniable evidence. They ignore logic, dismiss reason, and cling to their beliefs at any cost. This phenomenon is fueled by confirmation bias, the tendency to seek out information that supports one's existing beliefs while ignoring anything that contradicts them. People surround themselves with news sources, opinions, and online communities that reinforce their worldview, creating echo chambers where misinformation thrives. Social media has amplified this effect. False information spreads 6 times faster than the truth because it is designed to trigger strong emotional reactions. People don't share content because it is accurate. They share it because it confirms what they already believe. And the more they see it, the more they become convinced that it must be true. Historical examples. History is full of tragedies caused not by evil, but by the refusal to accept reality. In 1986, the NASA Challenger disaster became one of the most infamous examples of stupidity in decision-making. Engineers repeatedly warned that the O-rings in the space shuttle were not designed for cold temperatures. The evidence was clear, the risks were well documented, yet senior officials ignored the warnings. They pushed forward with the launch, convinced that nothing would go wrong. 73 seconds after takeoff, Challenger exploded, killing all 7 astronauts on board. It wasn't ignorance, it was stupidity. In Nazi Germany, millions of people blindly followed Hitler, not because they were inherently evil, but because propaganda had erased their ability to think critically. The Nazi regime didn't just use force, it used manipulation. It convinced an entire population to ignore reality, creating an environment where questioning the state was seen as a betrayal. A similar mindset led to the Chernobyl disaster. The engineers at the power plant knew the reactor was being pushed beyond its limits, yet those in charge refused to acknowledge the danger. Even as alarms sounded, they insisted that nothing was wrong. When the explosion finally happened, it wasn't just a technological failure, it was the result of human stubbornness and denial. These events prove that intelligence alone does not prevent disaster. When people stop questioning, stop thinking for themselves, and stop listening to reason, history repeats itself. Psychology behind stupidity. Why do people follow stupidity so easily? Psychology offers some disturbing answers. In the Milgram experiment, psychologist Stanley Milgram tested how far people would go in obeying authority. Participants were instructed to administer electric shocks to another person whenever they answered a question incorrectly. The shocks weren't real, but the participants didn't know that. They heard screams, pleas for mercy, even silence suggesting the person had passed out. Yet most participants continued pressing the button, delivering what they believed were lethal shocks, simply because an authority figure told them to. The Asch conformity experiment revealed another unsettling truth. Participants were shown a set of lines and asked to identify which one was the longest. The answer was obvious, but when the actors in the room deliberately chose the wrong line, 75% of participants also gave the wrong answer just because everyone else did. These studies prove a terrifying reality. Most people will obey authority and conform to the group, even when they know it's wrong. This is the foundation of groupthink, where individuals stop thinking critically and blindly follow the majority. And history has shown that when groupthink takes hold, disaster follows. Stupidity and power. The more power someone gains, the more likely they are to fall into stupidity. Power creates an illusion of infallibility. Leaders start believing that because they are in charge, they must be right. They surround themselves with advisors who reinforce their views, creating an echo chamber where no one dares to challenge their decisions. This is known as the yes men effect, a cycle where powerful individuals receive only agreement, making them blind to their own mistakes. The 2008 financial crisis is a prime example. Experts warned that the housing market was unstable, that subprime mortgages were a ticking time bomb, but the executives running the biggest banks ignored every warning. They convinced themselves that their business models were perfect, dismissing all criticism. When the bubble finally burst, it wasn't just greed that caused the collapse, it was stupidity, reinforced by arrogance and power. Stupidity thrives in power, because power isolates people from reality. The higher someone rises, the less they feel the consequences of their mistakes. And history has proven time and time again that when leaders refuse to listen, societies suffer. Modern stupidity today. Stupidity is more dangerous than ever. False information spreads 6 times faster than the truth. Social media algorithms are designed to feed users content that confirms their beliefs, creating echo chambers where misinformation flourishes. People are not seeking truth, they are seeking validation. Conspiracy theories thrive in this environment. Despite overwhelming scientific evidence, millions of people believe in things like flat earth theories, vaccine conspiracies, and other absurd ideas. These beliefs don't spread because of facts, they spread because of fear, social pressure, and propaganda. Authoritarian regimes have always relied on stupidity to maintain control. The Nazi government used propaganda to convince an entire nation to ignore reality. Today, misinformation is spread not through government-controlled newspapers, but through viral posts and manipulated media. The more stupidity spreads, the harder it becomes to resist. And if people stop thinking critically, history will repeat itself once again. Solution: how to resist stupidity. Stupidity thrives when people stop questioning. The only way to break the cycle is to think for yourself. Question everything. Don't accept information at face value. Ask who benefits from me believing this. Expose yourself to opposing views. If you only listen to sources that confirm your beliefs, you are not learning, you are reinforcing ignorance. Reject blind obedience. Just because a leader, a government, or a media outlet says something doesn't mean it's true. Every claim should be tested against logic and evidence. Embrace self-reflection. True intelligence is not about knowing everything, but about recognizing when you might be wrong. The ability to change one's mind in the face of new evidence is the ultimate sign of wisdom. The moment people stop questioning, they become easy to manipulate. And a society that stops thinking is doomed to repeat history's greatest mistakes. Will you be a thinker or a follower? History has shown that the greatest tragedies weren't just caused by evil individuals, but by ordinary people who refused to think. People who blindly followed orders. People who accepted lies without question. We like to believe that if we had lived in those times, during the rise of totalitarian regimes, we would have resisted. We would have seen through the propaganda. But would we? Or would we, like so many before us, simply follow the crowd? Stupidity is not just a problem of the past, it is happening right now. Social media, misinformation, and blind obedience are shaping the way people think. The most dangerous people in history weren't evil, they were just too stupid to know better. And the only way to escape stupidity is to think before you believe, think before you repeat, and think before you follow. Because if you don't think for yourself, someone else will do it for you.